I pried it from his cold, dead hands. That's the real truth of how I got the watch. I tell people that he willed it to me, but the truth is that when I found him there, already stiff and cold, with that watch tightly held in hand, I broke 3 of his fingers just pulling his fist apart. The watch didn't care. All it cared about was finding its new host, and it had. My grandfather had loved that watch in life, but I doubt he ever understood what it really was. He called it his countdown watch, claimed it had been given to him as thanks by a witch who he rescued during the war. He said that the watch told him how much time he had left, and when the hand circled back to the number at the top, 94, he'd die. Nobody in the family had believed him, of course, but when he finally did die, at the age of 94 no less, that watch had stopped right there, along with his heart. And when I wrenched it from his dead hands, I watched in wonder as the little golden 9 and 4 melted, wriggled around like golden worms before rearranging themselves into a new number, 76. The 94 ticks on the side melted into a pool and remade themselves into 76. I watched, breathless, as the hand slowly turned a third of the way around the face. I understood. I would die at 76. I had 49 years left, and not a minute more. What I didn't realize is that I could lose years. The first time I realized the true power of the watch, it was completely by accident. I was sitting alone in my living room, staring at the way the sunlight glinted off the gold surface, feeling the pleasant weight of the metal in my hand, as I began to drift into the most pleasant kind of daydreams, those about a woman. I had met Samantha at a coffee shop 2 months before when she bumped into me and covered me in a latte. We were friends, and she had made it clear that's all we would ever be, but my heart refused to acknowledge the reality of my situation, as hearts often do, and I found myself wishing that she would just give me a chance, then she would see. It was at this moment that the watch suddenly grew very warm in my hands, and as I ran my fingers over the surface, my thumb found a little button that had never been there before. What else could I do? I pushed it. My heart stopped, the air vanished from my lungs, my muscles stiffened, and I fell from my chair onto the floor. I coughed and sprayed blood on the floor. Then as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. There was blood on my lips, but other than that, no physical evidence of what had just happened to me. I stared, dumbstruck at the watch. I counted 3 times. The hand had moved 2 ticks. I had gone from having 49 years left to 47. I barely had time to process what had happened before the knock came at my door. It was Samantha, of course, ready to profess her love to me. 6 months later, we were married, and I had barely looked at the watch since that day. In that time, I was well and truly happy. For a while, anyway. Within a year, Samantha was pregnant. I had always wanted to be a father and was ready to welcome my child into the world with open arms. Fate, however, had other plans, as it often does. Samantha awoke one morning during month 8 to a terrible cramping in her belly. When I pulled the blanket off of her, I saw the blood on the sheets. We rushed to the hospital, but there was nothing to be done. The baby was dead, but Samantha still had to birth it. The doctors medically induced labor to get it out of her. After that, Samantha just wasn't the same. She sank into depression and pulled me down right alongside her. It was then that my thoughts returned to the watch. It knew what I wanted. I dug it out of a little metal tin I kept it in and held it in my hand. The heat was more powerful than I remembered, and this time it was accompanied by a low buzzing sound, like flies on a corpse. The button appeared in the same place, and once again I pushed it. The watch fell from my hands as I collapsed to the floor. My vision vanished into a swirling cloud of blackness, and my head swam in a sea of pain. My heart swelled, throbbed violently against my chest. The pain lasted less than a minute, though it felt much longer. When I arose, blood leaking from my eyes and the corners of my lips, I saw that the watch had moved 5 ticks. I washed my face and went to find Samantha to tell her not to worry, that I had a gut feeling that she was pregnant again, that this time everything would be okay. She had barricaded herself in the bathroom, however, as she often did. I called out a few times, but there was no answer. My heart sank. I put my shoulder to the door and smashed it open. Samantha was in the bathtub, in rose-tinted water, her wrists slit wide open. She was not dead. I called 911, then wrapped her arms up as best I could with our bathroom towels. I cradled her wet head in my arms as I waited for paramedics to arrive. When they did, I went along with them to the hospital, though they could not let me ride in the back with her in case it got in the way. Ultimately, it didn't matter. However, Samantha sank in a coma. Days turned to weeks, turned to months, and Samantha's belly grew. I went to her hospital bed every day. I knew, of course, what I would name the baby. Samantha if it was a girl, Sam if it was a boy. When the time came, the doctors had to induce labor again. It made me think of our first child, a little girl, and what her life might have been like. I held Samantha's hand as the doctor delivered her baby. When its head was out, I saw his face change. The entire room went silent, all except the crying of the baby and the orders from the doctor to his nurse, now delivered in hushed tones. Finally, it was over. I did not get a chance to hold my son that day. The doctors carried him away to the NICU ward. But though I did not hold him, I could see him. Twisted little thing that he was. He had no fingers, no toes, just empty stumps. His hair was patchy and sat about a face with a hair lip and a single glazed over eye situated in his forehead. As I looked down at him, hooked up to all those machines, I felt no love, only disgust and regret. I had given up 5 years of my life to watch this nightmare unfold. It was then that the watch burned in my pocket. I fished it out and stared at it, glowing strangely under the dim light of the NICU ward. It knew what I wanted, and I wondered what happens when you unwish something. The button appeared, and I pressed it. My son's heart monitor flatlined, and I got my 5 years back.